Westworld Season 1 finale, The Bicameral Mind. This was a crazy freaking episode. It was a nice 90-minute episode, which was a good little surprise because I don't think they mentioned that it was going to be 90 minutes, and I didn't really look it up. I just thought, oh, it's going to be, the hour-long season finale, and it was a nice hour and a half, so that was a good little bonus, but it was a great freaking finale, and it did not go at all like I was expecting it to. We got some reveals, of course. We do officially learn that the Man in Black is William, which was the big theory everybody was kind of guessing at fairly early on. Like, well, specifically one person guessed it, and then it was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense, because it was like, the logos are different. That's pretty much all the evidence you need that it's two different time periods. Like, that's... And that was like the first time, too. That was like the episode he came in. It was like, oh, well, these are two different time periods. So... that's officially revealed, which it was still entertaining to watch. Like, even knowing that theory was right, it was still super cool to go through that and have that moment where Dolores actually, she finally says the name, because that's what I was hoping for. I was like, I feel like, she's waiting for William. I'm like, I'm just waiting for her to say the name, but they kept holding it off, and then she finally said it, and I was like, here we go, and this will be the moment. And it was still a really good moment, because we still got some stuff I wasn't expecting, even from that reveal. We have, William going through, and he's freaking losing his mind, of course, over Dolores. And we find out that he actually killed Logan. Like, they go out to the far reaches of the park. He strips Logan down, he gives him, like, the little black feather, and he hits the horse, and he's just tied new to this horse, and he rides out, and he's dead. Like, he just lets him go off, and he starves to death because the horse goes on forever. And I was like, that's insane. I did not see that one coming. I just assumed... he kind of lost it, but they still managed to make it work. Something happened. I figured, I still thought that Logan was the big, accident that happened like 30 years ago. I still thought that that was him. And that really surprised me. I was like, wow, I thought he was killed or something like that. And that was, the big accident that kind of sent things going on a spiral. Like, oh, we haven't had a user or a host, harming a user in forever. I thought it was Logan dying, and it ends up being William killed Logan, and that had nothing to do with the big thing 30 years ago. And it's funny because they show that they keep track of people now. Like, that was one of the things, I think it was like episode 3 or something, when the Men in Black, or William, I'm still calling the Men in Black as far as his current counterpart. Excuse me, but when he was at... I can't even think of the dude's name, but his buddy who was helping him out, when he went to his hometown and he was killing all those people, and they talked with Stubbs, and it's like, hey, you want us to stop this guy? And he's like, no, he's fine, he gets to do whatever he wants. But it was like, they kept track of people, because it was like, he killed like 3 gangs, he killed like 24 hosts or something crazy. So it was funny, like, going back on those comparisons, like 30 years ago, they didn't have that stuff. They didn't have that technology to track them like that. So him killing him is kind of just up in the air. Like, he knows that secret, and technically so does Dolores now, if he, depending on how specific he got with that story. So I'm curious if that'll ever come back into play where she kind of reveals it to him, or if that'll just kind of take a, be a back burner sort of thing. But I still thought that was really cool. We get, of course, the official reveal that there is no Wyatt. It was actually Dolores, which I figured was the case. It was like, alright, it was either that Teddy was going to end up being Wyatt, and that's kind of how they made it seem for a split second. It was like either he's Wyatt or somebody else is Wyatt, and it was like, alright, it makes sense that it would be Dolores. And it was funny, they actually showed the sequence where he saw Dolores and he saw like the army general, like he saw Wyatt and another general playing the music, and during that scene, I was like, that's definitely Arnold, because I think it was that same episode, Ford mentioned, it was like when they did the thing for Maeve and they played the music, it was like, oh, it's an old trick from an old friend. And it may have been the episode before that, but in the next one they showed Teddy, and he sees this random person playing music, and I'm like, that's definitely Arnold. Like, he's seeing something else, but that was definitely Arnold playing the music. And I was right, so that was kind of cool. He comes out and he's playing the music to kind of, quell everything. Even though everybody's dead, there's not much to really stop anymore. But he kind of calms them all down. It's like, all right, this needs to be permanent. We can't open this park because Dolores, you are alive. We have to, like, this just can't be the way that it works. So it can't send you into this madness and have you truly live through these experiences. And so Arnold's plan was to have himself killed. And he does, and unfortunately it doesn't work. But then we find out this crazy reveal that Ford actually carried on Arnold's plan where he's like, hey, I knew what he was trying to do, and it failed, but I can make it work. And I realized that the only way it could work is not if you kill other people, or, you know, there's some big accident and you just get, you know, cast off and, you know, sent underground. It's if you suffer. Like, that's what brings out the most real form of humanity within the host. And it was crazy. Like, this whole reveal is that he's the one making these decisions. He's the one who's reprogramming Maeve to, you know, wake up and stuff like that so that she could liberate the other hosts. And he kind of killed Bernard in the other episode, or in the last one, because when he shows up again, he's like, it's nice of you to join us. I was like, he wasn't surprised in any way, shape, or form. He's like, I'm sure he'll be taken out, but somehow they'll be able to fix him. Of course, Felix is like the human component, so that just happened to be the way it worked. But I don't know. Who knows? I mean, considering the way they did it, maybe that was a part of the plan. Maybe he was watching Felix and stuff, because Maeve always seemed to go to those two and nobody else. So maybe he knew that, you know, Felix was the right person to send her to. Like, honestly, it's up in the air, but it's like, I don't know, because it doesn't make a lot of sense that she would only go to Felix and the other guy, who I'm pretty sure is officially dead now. But it was like, you know, every time Maeve was, you know, taken out of commission, she always went to Felix. So maybe he knew that that was going to happen, and Felix was actually a part of his plan. Like, he'll definitely, you know, stick with Maeve rather than with other humans. So maybe he knew that that would work out as a part of his plan, even though it was a human element. He knew that he could still make it work. But crazy reveal. He's like, you know, yeah, I set all this up. Basically, you know, you guys have to suffer. You have to go through this constantly. The Man in Black has to confront his issue with finding the center of the maze, and finally understanding for the 4th or 5th time that it was told to him, the maze was not meant for him, which of course it wasn't. But I love the fact that you know, the host finding the center of the maze is exactly what he wants, but unfortunately it's not instantaneous like he wanted it to be. Like, he doesn't realize it's exactly what he's wanted the whole time, which was to wake up, you know, the host. It's just not, it wasn't as simple as get them to the center of the maze and it literally unlocks something. It's just kind of a reference to them, you know, them coming to this specific location and remembering. They just have to keep finding the maze over and over again in order to permanently wake up. So it was kind of funny that technically he got what he wanted. He just didn't realize it until that ending part where he gets shot in the arm, and he actually smiled, and I'm like, that's kind of awesome. That makes his character even crazier, because this whole time when he's just, you know, killing hosts and stuff, he's just the murderer. He's just killing off, you know, all these characters. He's trying to get to the center of the maze. And then, you know, when he's William, he's enjoying it. And, you know, we see that transition, especially in this episode, when he starts to actually, you know, just like go nuts and just kill all the hosts off and stuff. But in that ending moment, I really loved it, because when he got shot and he smiled, I was like, that part right there, that was William coming back into the forefront of that character, because that's him truly diving into what he's wanted, you know, the whole time. And it was kind of like him seeing what he wanted all this time kind of took him back 30 years to like a pseudo innocence. Like, obviously he's not really innocent, although technically he is. He hasn't really killed people. Weird stuff, psychology wise. But I just love the way they did that scene. He gets hit in the arm and he's shocked. Of course, he got shot, and then he's like, holy crap, like he got shot with a real gun too, because like his arm looked like it just blew up. But he smiled and is like, holy crap, like they're awake, you know. And Maeve sets everybody free, or maybe Ford did that. I'm assuming it was Ford, because Maeve was, you know, getting on the train. But, you know, he set everybody free, or one of them did. It's really hard to tell, honestly, because Maeve didn't have all of them with her to cause a distraction or anything, so I would assume that that was Ford's thing, to wake them all up and send them back into the park. But they all come out, you know, the Man in Black gets shot in the arm. Ford actually sacrifices himself, which was absolutely insane. That was the biggest shock, I think, of the whole episode. Even beyond him being the architect of all these crazy plans, even, you know, Maeve and stuff, him realizing, like, in order to truly enact my old friend's plan, I have to up the ante. I have to start it the same, but I have to kick it up a notch. And also, I have to hope that Dolores realizes it. And I thought that was really cool too. And we find out that in this episode, Ford's voice was the one telling them to remember. It wasn't actually Arnold. It was sort of a layered type of thing where it seems like it's Arnold, but it's actually Ford at this point. And I thought that was really cool. And Dolores has another internal voice, which is herself, and that human subconscious, and it wakes her up, and she's like, you know, he kind of gives her that final piece, like, the only way this will work is if you realize who you need to be. And basically, it's a free agent. Like, go nuts, and you gotta take out some humans. And that's what she does. She realizes it. She calms down Teddy, which I thought was a cool scene. And it's like, you know, everything's gonna be fine. You know, I can't remember the exact line, but it was something like, you know, we just have to show them who they truly are. And she walks around, and Ford's doing his speech and everything, and she puts the gun to his head and blows his brains out. And then she kills other humans that are in the area as well. So that was interesting. That was her waking up. Despite the fact that Ford had an initial plan for Maeve, it seemed like during that ending sequence, she woke up on her own as well. Like, her love for wanting to, or I guess her love, yeah, I guess for her daughter, took her off that train. You know, it took her off the train and it led her back into Westworld, and she's going to find her daughter and, you know, try to set her free. So I'm curious how that's going to play out, but it's interesting. Like, that was her waking up, because they even go through it like, oh, you're supposed to get on the train, and once you get to, you know, back on land, and then she, like, you know, snatches the thing, and she's like, bullshit, and she snaps it. I'm like, I wanted to know what he was going to say. But it doesn't really matter, because she kind of woke up in that moment of pain, and that stopped her. You know, that broke the narrative that Ford initially had, conveniently, at the same time as Dolores waking up, so it was all nice and cinematic. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really awesome. They have a really cool ending scene. Hopefully you guys watched until after the credits, but there is a sequence after the credits went off that actually shows the snake tattoo woman. She didn't die. Like, her, when she got trapped in there, she cut her own arm off, and so she's facing some of the guards and stuff, and she basically just smiles and walks towards them, and then it cuts off. So I'm assuming that was a hint, like, no, she made it past them, even though she shouldn't. She made it past them, and she'll show up again somewhere in the next season. And I'm assuming so will Hector, and whatever they decide to do with him, if they end up changing him, or, you know, whatever. If they figure out, like, oh, Ford set these narratives up, it wasn't them going wrong, so they don't think. Well, I mean, with Dolores, they'll realize something's off. So I don't, like, that's one of the hard things, like, where's it gonna go? Because at this point, is she gonna get, like, rolled back, but she'll always remember? Or how, you know, that's one of the big questions for me, is how that's gonna play out. But she lost it. But as far as the Maeve thing, it's like, oh, well, we can see that Ford was changing her stuff and things like that. He put the name Arnold in there and things like that. It was meant to be, you know, part of the reveal. So they might be able to figure that out on their own and say, okay, these hoes weren't going crazy. This was actually how it was supposed to go, because that's what Ford wanted. And then that'll kind of leave Maeve to do her own thing in the next season, where they'll think it was just the narrative, but something happened that brought her back. So it'll be interesting how that's going to play out. You know, we still have a couple characters left, despite the fact that they killed off like half the cast in this. So, well, Bernard is back, so he is alive, and no one knows that he's a host still, except for Felix, which I thought was a hilarious scene where he was like, and he looked at his hands, and man was like, oh my god, like, you're not one of us. So I thought that was a really funny scene where he's like, oh crap, I thought he was human the whole time. You know, what's happening with me? I don't even know anymore. So that was actually a really funny scene. I was surprised that didn't happen earlier in this series, but it was really funny because he just freaked out and was like, and she's like, oh my god, you're not one of us. But Bernard's still there. We have Maeve. We have all the other hosts that have been brought back, including, of course, Abernathy, who we never saw actually get on the train, so I don't think that actually went through. I mean, maybe it did, and they just skipped over that whole sequence, but they never focused on it, so I don't think they actually got the opportunity to get him onto the train and, like, let him go off to Delos or anything. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know if he is there or not. If he escaped, it might make a difference. If he didn't, it probably wouldn't make any sort of difference. He's just awakened at this point, so he's just kind of a part of that whole collective. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. We still have our other conscious hosts, like the one girl who was constantly showing up throughout the season, who was trying to tell Teddy to remember. And then we have like the last two things I think that are really big for this season. We have, of course, Samurai World, which this show knows how to get me. Like first they do westerns, and now they got samurais being introduced. So those are like my top two things. Samurai, of course, being number one. But that was awesome to see that. I was like, oh, what's this? So they have multiple parks. If you've ever seen the old movie Westworld, they had like Roman stuff in there and things like that. So it wasn't just the Wild West. They had a bunch of different worlds in the parks. So I thought that was awesome. And because they showed it, I assume that we have to get something on that. Either we're going to have some of these conscious characters, maybe like Maeve and some of the other characters, running into Samurai World to hide, or we'll just get more conscious characters from Samurai World. Maybe they were transferred from Westworld to Samurai World later on, and it's like, oh, I used to be this person, from the States or whatever, and that's how they, make sense of it within Samurai World. So maybe some of the conscious hosts are in that world, and we just haven't heard about them yet. Maybe some of the current conscious hosts will sneak over into Samurai World if they can, find their way there. Like, I'm sure they have like those secret elevators just like Westworld. Probably the same thing. And they might even be connected in some way. Like we have, these giant parks. I'm sure there are some places somewhere where it's like, yep, this leads directly next door to the other park. Like maybe they're even across, the water or something like that. Which wouldn't make a ton of sense, but at the same time, I don't think any human would try to figure that out. And if a host went rogue, it's like, oh, well, we lost one host in the water, no big deal. So they could be connected, just by the water, and it's, just imagery and stuff like that, just like holograms that make it look like it goes on forever. It's like, yeah, if you went out like 100 feet, you'd just be in the next world or something silly like that. So who knows? But they introduced that, so that I feel has to come into play. I hope it does, of course, in the next season. And then number two is Stubbs. He got attacked by those Native American hosts, I think those 2 episodes ago, and he's gone. There was no reference to him whatsoever. We didn't see him or hear from him or hear about him. No one mentioned him, like, oh, where is he at? He's missing. I thought they would come, at least somewhat reference it when things started to go wrong in like that main facility where he's always at, overlooking the whole park. But they didn't reference him there or anything like that. So I'm like, he's gone. So he was taken or kidnapped, I guess, whatever. And now that's where he is with these Native American hosts who appear to be conscious. So that's just left wide open. They introduced it, he vanished, and that's all we have. So who knows what the heck's going to be happening with that. I'm very curious. It would be crazy if there was an epic reveal in the next season that Elise didn't actually die and she was just choked out by Bernard, because we only saw like those 2 seconds, and it's like, why would she be killed off by Arnold? Like, why would that be the case? If she's trying to stop all this stuff, why would Arnold do that? Or Ford, because we found out that Ford was the one planning it this whole time. It was never actually Arnold with, these secret implementations. It was always Ford. Why would Ford lead him to kill her? So there's still a big question to that. Like, she died, and they made it seem like it was like, oh, it's just a lie from Ford, when he's like, of course not. And finding out that Ford was the one allowing them to wake up, it just makes me wonder, why in the world would Bernard ever need to kill her? Like, she was helping basically protect everything that Ford wanted. But I don't know. It's really hard to say why that would come to light. So who knows? Maybe she's alive, and that was just a little trick where it's like, oh, he killed her, but why? And now that it's Ford's plan, it makes even less sense. Like, if it was Arnold trying to do some crazy stuff and stop things, that might make more sense. But we find out it's all Ford. Still doesn't explain why Elise would need to die. So maybe she's not actually dead. Maybe we'll see her in the next season. Who knows? But Stubbs is out there somewhere. We have, like I said, Samurai World. Maybe the Snake Girl. Maybe that's where she'll end up going, because she escapes and she kills the other guards. Can't really go back to Westworld, so maybe she'll hop over to Samurai World. She was the one who was the most surprised too, because when they go through like that big facility portion between the 2 departments, right before they get to Samurai World, she pauses. Everyone else kind of just keeps going, and she kind of freezes. She's like, in awe of everything that's happening. And I just thought that was interesting. She seemed to be the most alive, outside of Maeve, out of the two that she recruited, like the Snake Girl and Hector. The Snake Girl seemed more alive than Hector did. Like, he kind of just seemed like he was just programmed again, and he just kept going. But she really seemed to either enjoy what was happening or like truly experience things for the first time. So I'm like, something's going on with her character they're gonna add to in this next season. But a phenomenal finale. I can't wait for the show to come back. Sadly, it won't be until like early 2018, something stupid like that. I hate when they do that with shows, but a good show is worth the wait, I guess. So I am excited for it to come back. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this finale, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts or least favorite parts. And I want to know, do you think the answers were satisfying? You know, all the theories we've had this whole season. What satisfied you? What didn't satisfy you? What are your theories now leading into the next season? You know, the stuff with Stubbs. At least now that I've kind of thrown that out there, is she really dead? You know, what was the point of that? So I want to know if you have any theories leading into the storyline for season 2, what they might do with Samurai World, what they're gonna do now that they have all these hosts kind of roaming free. Can they really even stop them? Definitely want to know your theories about that, and of course what you thought about this season finale in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.